In the summer of 2016, Netflix took a gamble and introduced to us what became a streaming adventure with Stranger Things. Who knew that the nostalgia would take such a hold on us and make that show a cultural icon? Well, the platform is taking another gamble with their summer movie event, and this time in the form of a horror movie trilogy based on R.L. Stine's horror series. Fear Street Part 1, 1994 is obviously the first part, but does it deliver the thrills, chills, and terror with enough story to make this trilogy worth it? In the town of Shadyside, a circle of teenage friends accidentally encounter the ancient evil responsible for a series of brutal murders that have plagued their town for over 300 years. So this isn't the typical kiddie goosebump stories that we have seen from R.L. Stine. This is decidedly grown up, and it's not directed at the youngins. Now, for the first small portion of the movie, I was a little worried that this was going to be lackluster, or maybe even just a series of copycat sequences strung together to make a new movie. The opening scene feels a lot like Scream, and then there are portions that feel like Halloween, and even some of the 90s horrors like I Know What You Did Last Summer. Sometimes other campy horrors show their influences as well. Now, luckily, the film does take on a life of its own, and it creates a pretty compelling and entertaining story. So first off, this has an amazing soundtrack. Because this takes place in 1994, we get a ton of 90s nostalgia that will make any Gen Xer go searching for their mixtapes. And as a Gen Xer myself, I was right at home with the music. The characters become very enjoyable, each with specific characteristics that give enjoyment to the show. And the central focus lands on the characters of Dina, Sam, Kate, Josh, and Simon. And I like the inclusion of logic by the characters. They have many moments where they're clear thinking and make what seem to be sound decisions. It's not just your random, hey, let's split up and run all over the place so we can get picked off one by one type of scenario. The characters are smart, and I liked that. And even the stoner character of the group, Simon, he is intelligent and he contributes smart solutions to the team. Each of the main players is a leader in their own right, and it's refreshing to watch a collection of characters as protagonists that you don't want to see knocked off. I really like how Josh, the youngest of the group, keeps reciting the Konami code in different situations. For him, it's a way to focus and calm down, but is it also giving him extra lives to maybe help him survive? Well, if you know, you know. I like the dichotomy of the two towns that the story revolves around too. They're each a side of the same coin. We have Shadyside that's downtrodden where tragedy often occurs, and then there's Sunnyvale where it's rich and prosperous and nothing bad ever happens. There's a good use of quick cuts that pull one scene into another, and the transitions in this way work very effectively. But in addition to quick cuts, there are also moments where the camera will follow the action of one character and then seamlessly turn to follow another, keeping the attention high without having to make a cut. And there are several creepy moments that are pretty tense and exciting. The score amps up the anxiety as our heroes try to survive the dangers that are coming at them. And the introduction of villains is done well and in a way that lets us get to know each one, and at least enough to know what they're about. And the horror and gore work well, and this thing gets pretty bloody. There were actually a couple of scenes that surprised me at how far the violence went. I wasn't expecting them, but they were good additions and they felt right at home within the narrative. Now, there are some portions that are a little cheesy. I mean, there's a scene with a bunch of students chanting on a bus after a school rally. It felt a little forced and awkward, but luckily, it just didn't last too long. There's also some mystery that is hinted at with a couple of characters, but not much is shown. And I'm really hoping that their info is going to be revealed in part 2 when the movie takes place in 1978. Now, this movie is an hour and 45 minutes, and it feels like it's the perfect length. It doesn't drag on, giving us unnecessary exposition or story tangents. The narrative keeps its focus on the central characters, and it keeps progressing forward. But this also doesn't feel like it's too short. Sure, there could be a little more detail on some characters like I said, but I think that development is left out on purpose to be given in the second part. And a danger that could come when making a trilogy, especially one that will release each part 1 week after the next, is that one story could feel incomplete, like we're just watching the first episode rather than a whole finished piece. And I think this movie can stand on its own. Yeah, there are story elements and mystery that it's going to carry over, but this has a full narrative with a resolution. And it makes us want more. So at the end of this, I think one of the most important questions that needs to be answered is, was it fun? And did this movie contain enough that's going to make us want to watch the second in the series? For me, it really was a fun watch and something that made me excited for what's to come. I love the violence and the characters, and the story is one that contains enough mystery to keep the intrigue going. And I can't wait for part 2, where we travel back in time just a bit to 1978. There's sex, no nudity, a lot of profanity, and a ton of brutal and gory violence. I give Fear Street Part 1, 1994, 4 out of 5 couches. So do you have a favorite horror franchise? I'd love to know what you love in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me. And if you would believe it, this is the 3rd time I've recorded this review. First 2 times, for whatever reason, the camera just decided not to record. So let's hope this one takes. Ha!